I wasn't sure what was more unsettling, the silence between us or the way she looked at me as she said, "I'll be back soon. Don't wait up." I thought she was joking. I mean, how could she not be? It was our anniversary. The one night I actually planned something for us to reconnect, to remind us of the years we had spent together. But she didn't laugh. She didn't even seem to care that I was clearly trying to make this night special. She just grabbed her coat, walked out, and left me sitting there, the candles flickering on the table in front of me. The dinner was cold before I even had a chance to take the first bite, and she hadn't even apologized. At first, I assumed something had come up, work, maybe, or a friend who needed her. But as I stared at the empty plate across from me, a thought gnawed at the back of my mind. This wasn't just anything. This wasn't the first time she'd done something like this, but it was the first time I had really noticed how little she seemed to care. I could feel it in my bones, like the tension was settling deep into my chest, suffocating me. So I waited. I waited for her to come back. The clock ticked on, and I sat there, stewing in my thoughts. The longer she took, the angrier I became, but I couldn't tell if it was justifiable anger or the kind that creeps up when you start to realize you've been made a fool of. At 11 p.m., I texted her, "Are you coming home soon? We were supposed to have dinner." She responded almost immediately, "I'll be back in a bit. Don't worry, I'm fine." I read the message, and something about it made my skin crawl. It wasn't the usual, "I love you, I'll be home soon" response. It was detached, almost rehearsed. Something was wrong. I could feel it, like the air in the room had shifted. I thought about calling, but I didn't want to seem needy. I didn't want to be that guy. But deep down, I knew the truth. She didn't care anymore. The next few hours dragged on. By 2 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my jacket, put on my shoes, and left. I needed to see it for myself. I didn't even know where I was going, but I knew I had to find her. I drove through the city streets in a daze, the neon lights reflecting off the wet pavement, the world moving around me like I wasn't even there. And then I saw it. Her car, parked outside a bar I had never been to, with the lights glowing through the windows. The kind of place I would never expect her to be, loud, crowded, and the kind of place where people went to escape their problems. I parked a few blocks away, my hands shaking as I stepped out of the car. I didn't want to look. I didn't want to see what I knew would break me. But something inside me couldn't resist. I walked slowly, trying to remain unnoticed, my heart hammering in my chest. I peered through the window, and there she was, Emily, sitting at a booth, laughing with someone. Not just any someone, but a man. A stranger. He was leaning in close, too close. She was laughing too much, genuinely, like she hadn't laughed in a long time. Like she didn't have a care in the world. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. My vision blurred for a moment as the reality of it all crashed into me. She had left me, on our anniversary, to be with him. She hadn't even looked back, not once. I watched for what felt like forever, my body frozen in place. I wanted to run in, confront her right then and there, but I didn't. I just stood there, paralyzed, watching the woman I had built my life with smile at another man like she'd never smiled at me. When they got up to leave, he kissed her on the cheek. That was it. That was the moment I knew everything had changed. The world I had built with her was just an illusion. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I just turned around and walked away. I had no plan. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to handle what I had just seen. I couldn't even go back home. I wasn't sure I could face her again. And I didn't know this then, but the worst part was yet to come. I ended up driving aimlessly for what felt like hours. My mind was racing, but all I could think about was that kiss. The way it looked so casual, so effortless, like it meant nothing to her. I felt numb, like I was stuck in a fog that I couldn't escape from. I couldn't believe what I'd seen, but deep down I knew. I knew it wasn't the first time. The signs had always been there, lingering beneath the surface, but I had ignored them. I had convinced myself that things would get better. When I finally pulled into the driveway, I didn't even bother to park properly. I just left the car running and walked up to the front door. The house was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that made everything feel so wrong. I stood there for a moment, staring at the door. Part of me wanted to knock and confront her. I wanted to scream, to ask her what the hell she thought she was doing. But another part of me, the part that was still holding on to hope, wanted to pretend like nothing had happened, like I hadn't seen what I had just witnessed. But there was no going back. I knew that. I had already seen too much. I walked inside and closed the door behind me, the sound of the lock clicking almost too loud in the stillness. The lights were dimmed, but I could make out her silhouette on the couch. She was on her phone, scrolling mindlessly through social media, as if everything was fine, as if nothing had changed. "Hey," I said quietly, my voice trembling more than I would have liked. She didn't look up at first. She just kept scrolling, completely unaware of what was going through my head. I stood there for a few seconds, waiting for her to acknowledge me, but she didn't. The silence between us was unbearable. Finally, she glanced up. "Oh, hey, you're back early. I thought you'd be out longer." She smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words were stuck in my throat. I could feel my anger bubbling up, but I didn't know how to release it. I couldn't even look at her without seeing the image of her with him, laughing, touching him the way she used to touch me. My chest tightened, and I struggled to keep my composure. "Where were you?" I managed to say, my voice almost a whisper. "I thought we were supposed to spend the evening together." Her smile faltered for a split second, but she quickly recovered. "I told you, Gary, I was just out with Jeff. He needed someone to talk to. He's been going through a tough time. You know how it is." I wanted to believe her, I really did. But that kiss, that moment I had seen through the window, had shattered everything. I couldn't just brush it off. "It didn't look like you were just talking," I said, my voice breaking as I forced myself to meet her eyes. She stiffened, the smile disappearing from her face. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her tone suddenly defensive. "You were with him, Emily. You were laughing, touching him. It wasn't just a conversation, was it?" I felt the sting of my words as they left my mouth, but I couldn't stop myself. I had to know the truth. For a moment, she didn't say anything. She just stared at me, her face unreadable. It was like she was trying to figure out whether or not I knew. I could see the gears turning in her head, but then she shook her head and sighed. "You're overreacting. It was nothing. You're being paranoid." I felt my heart drop. "Paranoid?" I echoed, my voice rising slightly. "I watched you, Emily. I saw it with my own eyes. And now you're standing here, acting like it didn't happen?" She stood up, pacing around the living room, running her hands through her hair. "I'm not having this conversation with you, Gary. Not tonight. It's our anniversary, for God's sake. Can't we just forget about everything and enjoy the night?" But it wasn't just a fight I was looking for. It was the truth. I needed her to admit what she'd done. I needed to hear her say it. "No, Emily. I can't just forget about it. You chose him over me, and I need to know why." She stopped pacing and turned to face me, her eyes full of frustration and something else, something darker. "You don't get it, do you? I don't owe you an explanation for everything I do. You're not the only one who's been struggling." Her voice was sharp, and for the first time, I saw a flash of something cold in her eyes. "Maybe it's time you stop acting like I'm the one who's ruining everything." I didn't know how to respond. I was too stunned. Her words stung, but they also made me realize something I hadn't fully accepted before. She wasn't the woman I married anymore. She wasn't even pretending to be. The silence that followed was deafening. Neither of us spoke. We just stood there, across from each other, two strangers who once thought they knew each other. The love we had built was slipping away, and all I could do was watch. But that night, I realized something else too. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a whole new chapter, and I wasn't going to let her get away with this. The silence in the room was suffocating. I stood there, feeling the weight of her words pressing down on me like a vice, my mind racing in 1,000 different directions. "You're not the only one who's been struggling," she had said. The words kept echoing in my head, but they didn't make sense. How had we gotten to this point? How had we gone from planning a future together to standing in a living room, barely even recognizing each other? Emily looked at me with an almost pitying expression, as if she were the one who had been wronged all this time. "You don't understand," she said softly, almost pleading now, but there was a sharpness beneath her tone. "I needed something different. I needed someone who actually listens. Someone who's not always on edge, waiting for me to slip up." Her words cut through me like a knife, but I didn't say anything. I couldn't. It was as if she had already made up her mind, as if this was the point of no return, and I was just standing there, watching her slip away. I turned away, walking toward the window, trying to collect my thoughts. The city outside was alive, people rushing around, completely unaware of the chaos unfolding inside my own home. It was almost surreal. How could everything look so normal out there when my world was falling apart? I leaned against the windowsill, trying to calm my breathing, but it was no use. My heart was pounding in my chest, my mind consumed with images of her laughing with him, of the way she had looked at him, of the way she hadn't even cared to look back at me when she left. I felt like I was losing everything, everything that had mattered to me. And there she was, standing behind me, making excuses, trying to justify it all. I turned around slowly, meeting her eyes. "So this is it. This is how you've been feeling all this time?" I asked, my voice cracking with the weight of it. "This is what you wanted all along?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked at me, her gaze softening for a split second before hardening again. "It's not that simple, Gary. It's not about wanting someone else. It's about wanting something I've been missing. Something that you stopped giving me." I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat. "So what? You thought Jeff could give you what I couldn't?" I was trying to keep my voice steady, but the anger was building inside me, a storm I couldn't control. Emily stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. "Maybe not, but at least he didn't make me feel like I was suffocating, like I was invisible. Don't you get it? I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want to do this. But I couldn't keep pretending like everything was okay when it wasn't. I needed to feel alive again, Gary." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. "You think I wasn't struggling too?" I spat, my emotions boiling over now. "You think I didn't notice how distant you've been? How you shut me out every time I tried to reach you?" My hands were shaking, and I clenched them into fists at my sides. "You think I wanted this? I didn't know how to fix it because you stopped telling me what was wrong. You just pulled away. And now I'm supposed to be okay with it because you found someone who made you feel alive?" She flinched at the anger in my voice, but she didn't back down. "I didn't know how to talk to you anymore, Gary. I didn't know how to get through to you." Her voice was softer now, almost sad. "And don't you think I've noticed? Don't you think I've seen how little we talk, how little we do together anymore? I can't keep pretending everything's fine when it's not." The truth of her words hit me like a wave, and for a moment, I felt the sting of it. Was I really that blind? Had I been so caught up in my own feelings of neglect that I couldn't see that she had been suffering too? I hated myself for not noticing sooner. I hated myself for not being able to fix it, for not being the man she needed me to be. But then, something else struck me. "And Jeff, what does he represent to you? What's so different about him?" I asked, my voice suddenly cold, the bitterness rising again. Emily's gaze shifted, and for a brief moment, I saw a flicker of guilt in her eyes. "It's not about Jeff, Gary. It's about me. I just needed to know if I could still feel something, if I could still be desired, you know?" She paused, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't even know if I want to be with him. I just needed to know that there was someone else who saw me. Someone who didn't treat me like I was invisible." She sighed, rubbing her forehead, the weight of it all seemingly crashing down on her. "And maybe that's on me. Maybe I didn't try hard enough either. But I can't keep pretending everything's okay when it's not." Her words stung, but a part of me understood. We had both failed each other in our own ways. She had kept her distance, but so had I. I had been so focused on my own struggles that I hadn't realized how far apart we had drifted. But knowing that didn't make it any easier to accept. The trust had been broken, and once trust is broken, there's no easy fix. "I don't know if I can do this anymore," I said quietly, the weight of my own words sinking in. She didn't respond immediately. She just stood there, her face a mask of confusion and regret. For a moment, it felt like we were both standing on the edge of a cliff, not sure whether to take the plunge or turn back. But in my heart, I knew we couldn't go back. Not after everything that had happened. And in that moment, I realized something. Our marriage had been hanging by a thread for a long time, and we were both too scared to acknowledge it. But now, with everything out in the open, there was no denying the truth. It was over. The silence that followed her confession was thick and suffocating, stretching between us like an impenetrable wall. I could barely breathe, my chest tightening with every passing second, the words she had just spoken replaying in my mind. I just needed to know if I could still feel something. That was the moment I realized that I wasn't the man she needed anymore. She had been looking for something, anything, outside of us to fill a void I should have seen coming. And now I was standing in front of her, trying to process what that meant. "Gary," she said softly, breaking the silence. But I couldn't look at her anymore. I turned away, my mind whirling with so many emotions I couldn't sort through them fast enough. Anger, betrayal, confusion, and worst of all, the crushing realization that maybe, just maybe, this was my fault too. I can't do this, I muttered to myself, barely aware of the words coming out of my mouth. My legs felt weak, like they were going to give out beneath me. I stumbled toward the door, the overwhelming desire to escape clawing at my chest. I needed to get out. I needed air. Gary, wait, please. Emily's voice reached me, but I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I had to leave, even if it was just for a few minutes. But she followed me. I could hear her footsteps behind me as I made my way to the front door. I didn't want her to stop me. I didn't want to hear any more of her excuses, her reasons for why she had done what she did. But then she grabbed my arm, and I froze. Please, just let me explain, she begged, her voice trembling. This isn't what you think. I never wanted to hurt you. I didn't know how to tell you what I was feeling anymore. I didn't know how to fix it. Her words were like daggers. She thought she could explain it all away. She thought that telling me how she had been feeling would suddenly make everything okay, make it all right. But it didn't. I didn't know how to fix it either. I didn't know how to fix us. And I realized, in that moment, that maybe I had already stopped trying. You don't get it, do you? I finally said, my voice low but steady. This isn't just about me or you. It's about us. Everything we've built is a lie now. I don't even know who you are anymore. She let go of my arm, and for a brief moment, I thought I saw the slightest flicker of regret in her eyes. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by a mask of defensiveness. I'm not the only one at fault here, Gary, she shot back, her tone hardening. You've been pulling away from me for months. You think I didn't notice? I don't know when it started, but I could feel it. The distance, the coldness between us. And I tried. I really did. But you weren't even looking at me anymore. You were too busy with your work, your problems, everything except me. That stung. That hit deeper than anything she had said so far. She was right. I had been distant. I had stopped trying too. I had withdrawn, just like she had. But there was something about hearing her say it so bluntly, with that cold edge in her voice, that made everything hurt even more. I wasn't perfect, okay, she continued, her voice cracking with the weight of it. I wasn't perfect, but neither were you. Her words, though true, felt like a betrayal in themselves. Was this all just an excuse? Was this just her way of justifying what she'd done? Maybe, but it didn't make what she had done to me any less painful. The way she had left me in the dark, alone on our anniversary. The way she had gone to him instead of me. I closed my eyes, trying to steady my breathing. I needed a moment, a chance to collect myself before I said something I would regret. So what now, Emily? What do we do now? My voice was barely a whisper. I didn't even know if I was asking her or myself. She took a step back, as if the question had startled her. I don't know, she admitted quietly, her voice filled with uncertainty. I don't know what to do anymore, Gary. I'm lost. I looked at her then, really looked at her. And in that moment, I realized something that shook me to my core. The woman standing in front of me wasn't the person I had fallen in love with. She wasn't the person who had promised to build a life with me. She wasn't even the person I thought I knew. And the worst part? I wasn't sure I even recognized the man I had become. The one who had let things get so far. Emily was right about one thing. This wasn't just her fault. It was mine too. We had both let this happen. We had both let things fester without ever truly addressing them. I can't keep pretending like everything is fine when it's not, she said, her voice cracking with emotion. I swallowed hard, fighting the lump in my throat. Neither can I whispered, the words feeling like a confession. I turned toward the door again. This time, I wasn't sure if I was walking away for good or just looking for space. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that maybe space was the only thing that could save us. Maybe we both needed time to figure out who we were now, and if there was even a chance we could ever be the people we used to be. Before I left, I looked back at her one last time. She was standing there, a broken version of the woman I once knew, her eyes filled with unshed tears. But I couldn't stay. I couldn't be the one to fix it all anymore. I'll be back later, I said, my voice hollow. But I need some time to think. As I closed the door behind me, I realized I wasn't just walking away from her. I was walking away from the man I had become, the man who had let it all fall apart. And I wasn't sure if I could ever go back. I didn't sleep that night. Not a single minute. My mind raced, replaying every single moment of the evening, every word that had been spoken, every glance that had been shared. I could still see her face, the way her eyes shifted when I confronted her. It was a look I had never seen before, a mix of guilt, regret, and a strange kind of desperation. It was as if she was trying to hold on to something that was already slipping through her fingers, but at the same time, she was too scared to reach out and stop it. I had always been the type of person to hold on to hope. But that night, hope felt like a distant memory. The woman I thought I knew was gone, and in her place stood someone I didn't recognize. Someone who had, for all intents and purposes, already checked out of our marriage long before I ever realized it. The next morning, I woke up to an empty house. The silence was deafening, and for a moment, I thought I was still dreaming. I thought maybe this was just some nightmare I hadn't yet woken up from. But then I looked around, and everything felt too real. The chair where Emily had sat just hours ago, her coffee mug still sitting on the counter. It was all a stark reminder of what had happened and what was yet to come. I spent the day wandering aimlessly around the house, trying to convince myself that things weren't as bad as they seemed. That maybe, just maybe, if I gave her space, she'd come back to me. But deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. I knew that no matter how much time passed, nothing would change. The damage had been done, and I was just too afraid to face the truth. By late afternoon, I could feel the tension in the air, thick and heavy. I hadn't heard from her since I left the night before. Not a single call, not a single text. I kept waiting for her to reach out, but the silence was all-consuming. I couldn't help but wonder if she was already moving on, if she had already made up her mind about what came next. I decided to go for a walk. The cool air felt like a slap in the face, but it was exactly what I needed to clear my head. I walked through the neighborhood, trying to sort through my thoughts, but all I could think about was the way Emily had looked at me when I walked out the door. There was something in her eyes that I couldn't shake. It was almost as if she was relieved to see me go. As if, in that moment, she was finally free. But why? Why had she felt that way? Was it something I had done? Something I hadn't done? I needed answers, and yet, I didn't know if I was ready to hear them. What if the truth was more than I could handle? As I walked, I couldn't help but think about the man she had been with. The man who had taken my place in her life. Jeff. I didn't know much about him, but I knew enough to know that he had been there for her when I wasn't. He had been the one to listen to her when I had become too preoccupied with my own issues. He had been the one to give her the attention I had neglected to offer. The thought of it made me sick. The idea that she had sought solace in another man, that she had gone to him instead of me, was a blow I wasn't sure I could recover from. But I wasn't ready to face him either. I wasn't ready to confront the reality that I had lost her to him. And yet, as much as I hated to admit it, I knew I had to. If I was ever going to move forward, I had to face the truth head-on. When I returned home, the house was still empty. I sat down on the couch, staring at the blank TV screen, not really watching it, but just trying to find some sort of distraction. I needed something to take my mind off the pain, off the endless loop of thoughts that had been running through my head all day. But there was nothing. No escape. Then my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen, and there it was, her name. I almost didn't answer. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear the apology, the excuses, the explanations that wouldn't change anything. But at the same time, I couldn't bring myself to ignore it. I needed to know what she had to say. I needed to know if there was even a shred of hope left in this relationship. I took a deep breath and answered. Gary. Emily's voice came through the phone, quiet and uncertain. Can we talk? It was the moment I had been waiting for, but now that it was here, I didn't know if I was ready. What do you want to talk about, Emily? I asked, my voice cold, almost detached. She hesitated for a long time before speaking again, and when she did, her words hit me like a ton of bricks. I think I made a huge mistake. I don't know what's happened to us. I don't know what's happened to me, Gary. I don't know how we got here, but I'm scared. Scared. That word echoed in my mind. But what was she scared of? Losing me? Or losing herself? I don't know if we can fix this, she continued, her voice trembling. But I want to try. I need to try. Please, Gary, don't give up on me yet. And that was the moment I realized I had a choice. I could walk away, end this chapter of my life, and move on. Or I could stay and fight for something that might be broken beyond repair. But the question was, did I even want to fight for it anymore? I sat there, the weight of her words pressing down on me like an anchor in my chest. Please, Gary, don't give up on me yet. Her voice was barely a whisper now, but it was still sharp enough to cut through the fog in my mind. It was strange, hearing her sound so vulnerable, so small. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't the confident, self-assured woman I had once known. She sounded broken, but I couldn't just ignore what had happened. I couldn't pretend everything was fine, that this was just a small bump in the road. It was so much more than that. She had crossed a line, and I wasn't sure if I could ever trust her again. The silence stretched on between us as I processed what she had said. The phone in my hand felt heavy, like I was holding on to something that no longer mattered. Maybe we both needed this moment of clarity. But the truth was, I didn't know if I was ready to forgive her. I didn't know if I was ready to let the past few months, hell, the past few years, go. Emily, I finally said, my voice quieter than I had intended. I don't know what you want from me anymore. You've made your choices, and I've made mine. We're both guilty here. I ran a hand through my hair, the frustration rising again. But I can't just pretend like none of this happened. I can't ignore the way you looked at me when I walked out last night. I can't ignore the fact that you were willing to walk away from everything we built together without even looking back. There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and I could almost hear her weighing her words carefully, trying to figure out what to say next. Finally, she spoke, her voice fragile but determined. I never wanted to hurt you, Gary. You know that, right? I didn't mean for any of this to happen. But I got so lost, so caught up in everything that I didn't know how to get out. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry. The word hung in the air between us, and for a moment, I thought I might believe her. But then my mind went back to that night, her walking out the door with him, her eyes not once glancing back at me. The way she laughed with him like she had forgotten all about me, about us. I had watched from a distance, helpless, as she chose someone else over me. And no apology could undo that. I don't know if I can just forget about it, I said, my voice low, almost as if I were speaking to myself. How do we go back from this, Emily? How do we rebuild something that's been broken so badly? How do I trust you again? She was quiet for a long time, and for a moment, I thought she might hang up. But then I heard a soft sigh, and she spoke again, her voice barely audible. I don't know, but I want to try, Gary. I want to fix this. I want to fix us. Please, if there's any part of you that still cares, just give me a chance. Her words struck me like a punch to the gut, but they also made my heart ache in a way I couldn't explain. I still cared, didn't I? Despite everything, despite the pain she had caused me, I still cared. And that terrified me, because I knew, deep down, that I was only holding on to something that had already slipped through my fingers. I stood up and paced the room, the weight of the decision pressing down on me. Could I forgive her? Could I forget what had happened? I wasn't sure. All I knew was that I couldn't make any decisions right now, not without thinking it through. I need time, Emily, I finally said, my voice hoarse. I need time to think. I need time to figure out if I can even look at you the same way again. I can't just jump back into this. She was quiet, and for a moment, I thought she was going to argue. But she didn't. Okay, she whispered. Take all the time you need. I'll wait for you, Gary. I'll wait for as long as it takes. The finality in her words hit me like a cold wave, and for a moment, I felt the weight of the entire situation crashing down on me. I wasn't sure if I was doing the right thing. I wasn't sure if I even wanted to fix this, but I knew I couldn't make any decisions in the heat of the moment. I'll let you know, I said quietly, before hanging up. The silence in the house was deafening as I sat back down on the couch. I didn't know what came next. I didn't know if there even was a next step. All I knew was that nothing was ever going to be the same again. I had already made up my mind, though. I couldn't keep living like this. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. And I wasn't sure if I even wanted to try anymore. But that didn't mean I was ready to let go just yet. The thought of losing her completely was unbearable, but so was the thought of being with someone who had already betrayed me. I got up, grabbed my coat, and went out for a walk. I needed some space, away from her, away from everything. The cold air hit my face as I stepped outside, and for a moment, it felt like I could breathe again. But deep down, I knew that whatever came next, it wouldn't be easy. And I didn't know if I was ready for that. The days that followed were a blur. I barely slept, barely ate, and I didn't know what to do with myself. It was like living in a fog. Everything felt distant, disconnected. I spent most of my time walking around the house, trying to make sense of the chaos in my head. Emily had texted me several times, asking if we could talk, but I ignored each message. Every time I saw her name pop up on my phone, I felt a sharp pang in my chest. It was easier to ignore her than to confront what was really going on between us. But then it happened. One evening, as I was sitting in the living room, trying to distract myself with a movie, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, and for a brief moment, I considered pretending I wasn't home. But something inside me, some nagging sense of responsibility, made me get up and answer the door. There she stood, Emily, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her hair was messy, and her eyes were red, like she had been crying. The sight of her stopped me in my tracks. I didn't know if I was angry, sad, or confused. Maybe I was all three. She didn't say anything at first, just stood there, her hand hovering over the doorframe as if she didn't know if she should come in or leave. "I've been trying to reach you," she said finally, her voice quiet. "Gary, I don't know what to do anymore. I can't keep waiting for you to make a decision. I can't keep living like this." I stood there, silent for a moment, trying to figure out what to say. I wanted to tell her to leave, that I couldn't handle it, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Part of me still wanted to believe we could fix things, and part of me wanted to scream at her for everything she had done. "Why are you here, Emily?" I asked, my voice shaking slightly. "What do you want from me?" Her eyes filled with tears as she looked at me. "I don't know anymore," she whispered. I just need to know if there's still a chance for us. If you still love me. If you still care." The words she said hit me harder than I expected. I had spent so much time thinking about everything she had done wrong, everything that had gone wrong in our relationship, that I hadn't stopped to consider how much I still cared about her, how much I still loved her, despite everything. I wanted to tell her that I didn't know what to do, that I didn't know if I could trust her again, but I didn't say that. Instead, I just stood there, staring at her, caught between the desire to hold her and the fear that if I did, it would just make things worse. She stepped forward, reaching for my hand. "Gary, please. Just tell me. Tell me if there's any hope left. I don't want to lose you." I didn't pull away. Instead, I let her take my hand, the warmth of her skin against mine stirring something deep inside me. I still didn't know if we could make it through this. I didn't know if I could forgive her for everything, but in that moment, I realized that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't ready to let go. "I don't know, Emily," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't know if I can trust you again, but I'm not ready to give up on us just yet. I can't be, but I need time. I need space." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'll give you as much time as you need, Gary. I promise. But please, don't give up on me." And just like that, everything felt heavier, but at the same time, there was a strange relief. I had no idea what the future held for us, but I knew that whatever happened, it was going to take more than time to fix this. It was going to take work, patience, and a lot of painful conversations. "I don't know how this will end," I told her, "but I'm willing to try. I think we owe it to ourselves to try." She smiled through her tears, her voice cracking as she whispered, "Thank you." She stepped back, and for a moment, I thought she was going to leave. But instead, she just stood there, looking at me like she was waiting for something. Waiting for me to take the next step. I didn't know what that step was. I didn't know if I was even capable of taking it. But one thing was clear. I couldn't move forward until I figured out what I wanted. As she turned to leave, she stopped and looked at me one last time. "I'll be here when you're ready, Gary. I'll wait for you. Whatever it takes." And just like that, she was gone. I didn't know what came next. I didn't know if we were headed for a happy ending or a painful separation. But in that moment, I realized that maybe the hardest part wasn't figuring out whether or not I could forgive her. It was figuring out if I could forgive myself. The days following Emily's visit were difficult, to say the least. The silence that once felt unbearable now seemed like a necessary space, a time to think, to reflect, to make sense of everything that had happened. Emily gave me the time I needed, and for the first time in a long while, I focused on myself. I spent days going through old journals, revisiting memories of the early days of our relationship, the days when everything felt simple and genuine. I tried to remember what had brought us together in the first place, before the cracks had begun to show. I'd always been someone who tried to solve problems on my own, but this time, it was different. I couldn't do it alone. I realized that, more than anything, I missed her. I missed us. I missed the connection we had, the laughter, the quiet moments of shared understanding. And though I didn't know if it was possible to rebuild everything that had been broken, I knew I couldn't walk away without trying. We owed it to each other. One evening, almost a week after that conversation, I made the decision. I couldn't wait any longer. I couldn't let fear or doubt dictate the outcome of our story. I picked up my phone, my hands shaking slightly as I typed a message. I'm ready to talk. I need to see you. The response came almost immediately. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I took a deep breath as I stood up, pacing the living room. My heart was racing, but this time, it was a different kind of nervousness. It was a nervousness rooted in hope. I didn't know what would happen when we talked, but I knew that I was no longer afraid of facing the truth, no longer afraid of confronting what was broken. It was time to rebuild, no matter how hard it would be. When Emily walked through the door, she looked the same, but different. There was an honesty in her eyes now. No more hiding behind excuses, no more deflection. She had been through her own journey these past few days, just like me. We both had, and now we were standing on the edge of something new. Whether it was the beginning of healing or the final chapter, I wasn't sure. But I knew that together, we would figure it out. I've thought about everything, I said, my voice steady but full of emotion. And I realized that. I'm still in love with you, Emily. I can't pretend I'm not. But I need to know that you're in this with me, that you're willing to fight for us too. She stepped closer, her voice trembling slightly. I've always loved you, Gary, and I am ready to fight. I know I've made mistakes, and I know I've hurt you, but I want to make it right. I want to do the work, and I want to rebuild everything we've lost. The air between us seemed to shift. There was a rawness in the way we looked at each other now. No more pretending, no more lies. There was just us. And in that moment, I knew we were both ready. We were both willing to put in the effort, to face the painful reality of what had happened, and to work through it. Together. I don't have all the answers, I said softly, but I know we have a chance. A real chance, if we're willing to work for it. Emily nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. But this time, they were different. They weren't tears of regret or guilt. They were tears of hope. We can do this, Gary. I believe that we can. And then, without saying another word, she took my hand. It was simple, yet it was everything. The touch was a promise that we would face whatever came next together, no matter how hard it might be. In that moment, I didn't need any more reassurance. I didn't need to hear any more apologies. We had both faced the hardest truth. We had almost lost each other, but we weren't too far gone. The love was still there, buried beneath the pain, and we were ready to dig it out and rebuild. It wasn't going to be easy. I knew that. But for the first time in what felt like forever, I was ready to take the next step with her. I wasn't running away, and neither was she. We were choosing each other again, and that was enough.